He could have ended it in 5 seconds. A single word into a loudspeaker. A white flag. And everyone would have walked away alive. Instead, he fired a rifle shot into the winter air. December 1944. The war is already lost for Germany. But on a frozen road near the Saar, one German officer refuses to surrender, not because he thinks he can win, but because he believes surrender has to mean something. So the Americans do something no one expects. They give him time. Why would a U.S. company commander, exhausted, outnumbering the enemy, with orders to advance, wait? And what happened in that 1 hour would stay with both sides long after the shooting stopped. The Germans weren't winning. Everyone knew that. So why didn't he surrender? The war that no longer looks like a war. By December of 1944, the Western Front has stopped behaving like a front. It's not a clean line anymore. It's pressure. A slow, grinding collapse. Villages fall without a shot. Roads flood, then freeze. Men advance one hedgerow at a time, not sure who's still fighting, and who's just waiting to be found. American units move through eastern France into the German borderlands expecting resistance. Sometimes they don't get it. White cloths in windows. Rifles left in doorways. Hands raised before orders are even shouted. But not today. Outside a half-destroyed town near the Saar, an American infantry company stops cold. Ahead, a narrow road. Leafless trees. Burnout wagons. And a cluster of stone farm buildings that refuse to go quiet. No movement. No smoke. No sound. Which, in late 1944, is the most dangerous sound of all. A squad moves forward cautiously. They're expecting one of two things. Nothing at all. Or a quick surrender. Instead, crack. A rifle shot snaps through the cold air. Not wild. Not panicked. Controlled. It hits the dirt near their boots. Then another. The squad pulls back immediately. This isn't chaos. This is intention. The company commander sends a runner. Recon confirms it. The Germans are still there. And one of them is clearly in charge. Through binoculars, an American lieutenant catches a glimpse. A man standing in the doorway of the largest building. Long coat. Field cap pulled low. Pistol holstered, not drawn. Binoculars hanging from his neck. He isn't shouting. He isn't firing wildly. He's watching. Captured prisoners from earlier that day mentioned him, almost casually. A major. Older. Eastern Front veteran. A man who already knows how this ends. The Americans bring up a loudspeaker. A German-speaking corporal steps forward. By the book. You are surrounded. Lay down your arms. You will be treated according to the Geneva Convention. Silence. Then, a single rifle shot fired straight into the air. And nothing else. He wasn't trying to escape. He wasn't trying to win. So what was he doing? The refusal. They try again. Louder. Clearer. This time, the answer comes back in German. Calm. Polite. The major refuses. He states, plainly, that he is an officer of the German army. That his orders are to delay the enemy. And that he will not surrender his position. No insults. No ideology. Just a statement of fact. The lieutenant lowers his binoculars, looks at his men. They're exhausted. Wet. Cold. Some have been moving for nearly 3 days with almost no sleep. Nobody wants a firefight over a farm that means nothing. But the road? The road matters. Higher command responds fast. Do not bypass. Do not leave a hostile force in your rear. Resolve it. Mortars are brought up. Not fired yet. The company commander hesitates. Because by late 1944, good officers have learned something important. Not every problem needs to be solved immediately with force. Another attempt. A white cloth tied to a stick. An American NCO, unarmed, walks halfway down the road. Hands visible. He stops at a safe distance and calls out again. This time, the German major steps fully into view. He listens. The NCO talks about food, medical care, warmth, survival. The major answers slowly. He admits his men are exhausted. He admits there are no illusions left about victory. But surrender, for him, isn't tactical. It's personal. He's already retreated too far. Already given up too much ground. He will not retreat again. The NCO asks how many men he has. The major doesn't answer. Instead, he asks a question of his own. How much time will you give us? That question changes everything. The NCO returns. The exchange is relayed. The company commander thinks. Then he makes a decision that surprises everyone. 1 hour. 1 hour to reconsider. 1 hour before the Americans advance. The order spreads quietly. Rifles rest. Mortar crews wait. Time stretches. At the 40-minute mark. Movement. A young German soldier steps out from a side building. Hands raised. Shaking, not sure if from cold or fear. He says the major dismissed him. Told him to surrender if he wished. No one would stop him. Within minutes 2 more follow. Then another. The Americans wave them through. Search them. Wrap them in spare blankets. At the end of the hour, the major is still standing in the doorway. The assault begins. Brief. Controlled. Overwhelming. Machine gun fire suppresses windows. Mortars land behind the buildings, cutting off retreat, not destroying them. Infantry moves in short rushes, using walls and ditches. The Germans fire back. Weakly. Ammunition is low. This isn't resistance meant to win. It's resistance meant to be seen. 15 minutes later. It's over. Smoke drifts through the yard. A wounded German soldier calls for help. An American medic moves immediately. No orders needed. Inside the main building, they find the major. Seated at a wooden table. His pistol lies beside him. Unloaded. Gloves removed carefully. Placed neatly next to it. He stands when the Americans enter. Doesn't raise his hands until asked. The lieutenant, mud-streaked, breathing hard, looks at him. Then asks through an interpreter. Why didn't you surrender when you had the chance? The answer is immediate. He says surrender should be earned, not requested. That an officer's duty is to resist until resistance no longer has meaning. That he wanted his men to see he didn't abandon his post lightly. The lieutenant nods. He's heard answers like this before. Some make sense. Some don't. This one lands somewhere in between. What happens next has nothing to do with victory, and everything to do with dignity. The Major is searched, escorted outside. No rough handling. No shouting. Someone offers him a cigarette. He hesitates, then accepts. No one strips his insignia. An enlisted man notices the Major's boots, soaked through. Quietly points him toward a fire barrel. The Major hesitates again, then walks over. Later, during processing, they learn more. He's served since before the war. Lost a son on the Eastern Front. Has no illusions left. That night, he eats the same rations as the Americans guarding him. Weeks later, an intelligence officer asks if he regrets refusing to surrender earlier. The Major pauses. He says he regrets the delay, not the decision. Because the Americans proved something to him. Not by force, but by restraint. In the official reports, this barely exists. A brief resistance. Several prisoners taken. No American casualties. In a war measured by cities and corps and casualty lists, this was nothing. But for the men who were there, it stayed. They remembered the officer who chose resistance when it no longer changed the outcome. They remembered being given time instead of destruction. And they remembered something history doesn't often talk about. That surrender and refusal aren't always about ideology. Sometimes they're about dignity. About how a war ends. Not in victory. Not in defeat. But in how two enemies choose to treat each other when the fighting becomes unnecessary. If stories like this matter to you, stories that don't fit cleanly into heroes and villains, then make sure you're subscribed. Because these moments don't survive on their own. They survive because people choose to remember them. Like the video if this story made you think differently about how wars actually end. And I'll see you in the next one. History isn't just decided by battles. Sometimes it's decided by restraint.